Welcome back, America. I'm Hugh Hewitt. I've seen enough. I'm calling it. The Hughes fire is out of control. They've closed the I-5. It is massive. It is growing quickly. Hashtag Hughes fire. It's not my fire. It's Hughes fire. Hashtag Hughes fire. It's when they close the 5. That's unusual. Keep your eye on it. Be alert. Evacuation order gone out. Charles C.W. Cooke, National Review senior editor, podcaster, has his own podcast, Charles C.W. Cooke Podcast, and frequently on the editors at National Review. Hello, Charles. How are you?
I'm doing well. How are you?
I am great. Now, you actually know a lot about constitutional law. I've been teaching it for 29 years, but you are what we call the educated layman. So I want to know what you think first of the birthright citizenship executive order, and then I'll tell you what I think about it. Go ahead.
Well, I think he's going to have his work cut out, President Trump, irrespective of the veracity of the claim that he's making, just because this has been established for a long time. I think the seminal case was 1896, in which it was heavily implied that the just soli principle, the idea that if you are born on American soil, you are an American and can return to America, was confirmed. Now, the wrinkle here, I think, is less to do with the under the jurisdiction thereof question, which I do think is weak. I think that illegal immigrants are under the jurisdiction thereof, and more to do with whether or not that can be interpreted via the executive branch issuing an order. I have read some persuasive arguments that maybe Congress could weigh in and say, here's how we uphold the 14th Amendment. I'm not sure the president can do that on his own. So I think he's going to have his work cut out, either because the Constitution does mandate this and would require an amendment, or because if there is some wiggle room, a Supreme Court case would hold that Congress had to be the one to make the determination.
Interesting take. As always, Charles knows what he's talking about. It's Wong Kim Ark is the case. It's not dispositive because it dealt with legal residents who had left and had a child, and so these are having to do with illegal residents who have a child, but I think it's close enough, and I do believe it's a good thing that the president issued this so that we can close the book. I am not with you on Section 4. I don't think Congress has the authority to do this. That's the enforcement provision of the 14th Amendment. But that's trenchant and good. The Supreme Court will expand Wong Kim Ark, I think. Now let's go to where we probably completely agree. I love the executive order on DEI. I've written about it for Fox News. That's what the 14th Amendment says. No penalties inflicted, no benefits conferred on the basis of race, gender, ethnicity, country of origin, or religion. And Trump stamped it out with the stroke of a pen. Not only Johnson's executive order from 65, but everything else that rolled out after that. What did you make of that one, Charles C.W. Cooke?
I think it is magnificent. I think it is so welcome. The United States has 2 institutional blocks on racial discrimination. One is the 14th Amendment. The other is the Civil Rights Act of 1964. And despite these, for years, various organizations within the country, including at times the federal government itself, has violated the plain terms of those institutions. Affirmative action was a good example of it. It was only, last year that the court finally stepped in and said, no, you're not allowed to do this. I think they could have done that on constitutional grounds or statutory grounds. DEI, in some circumstances, especially when promulgated by the government, seems to me a clear violation of the Civil Rights Act, if not the 14th Amendment. And this is a sweeping order. I mean, I think I'm right in saying that Ronald Reagan wanted to rescind the executive order that Lyndon Johnson had put out, but Congress told him not to and said that it would codify it in the law if he did. Well, that's not going to happen this time around. We live in a different era, and the damage that DEI does has been made apparent to pretty much everyone. So I applaud this. I think this is a fantastic shift, but better than just being good policy. This is, I'm to risk criticizing the media here, Hugh. This is not some violation of American principle. This is American principle. This is upholding American principle. This is what America's supposed to be. This is an extension of the Declaration of Independence. It's terrific.
I couldn't agree more. And I think that I've been describing it as Donald Trump built the trampoline in his first term. 3 originalists joining, 3 originalists on the court for 6 originalist majority. Doesn't always agree, but they're usually pretty close together. And John Roberts, the Chief Justice, wrote, the way to end discrimination based on race is to stop discriminating based on race. I think they'll get 6 votes for this. But the trampoline is going to be used now, both on birthright citizenship and on discrimination based on race, gender, ethnicity, et cetera. Do you think this is 3D chess? I know people mock that a lot, but this is pretty smart. Donald Trump didn't write that executive order. I don't know who did, but they were very good lawyers.
Oh, it's really good. The administration came in prepared. I wish that more of our lawmaking were done in Congress. I wish we didn't have this seesaw between administrations to quite the extent that we do. But this is an example of where the executive branch has been interfering for years and where there is some leeway left by Congress, whether there should be or not. Sometimes what happens is presidents come in and then they think, well, I've got to change the policy of my predecessor, and then they panic. But whoever wrote this had been thinking about it for years. I mean, this draws on all manner of previous work. I think it will be upheld too. I also think it will be very popular. One of the great lies in this area, and we saw this with the affirmative action case, is that the destruction of affirmative action and DEI is some project of the elites. No, it's not. This is what the man on the street wants. DEI and affirmative action were the project of the elites. They have about 20% support when you poll it. So not only is it constitutional, not only will I think it will be upheld, but it will be very popular, and it should be.
And I hope that you and the editors on the National Review podcast talk about it at length. I hope you talk about it on the Charles C.W. Cooke podcast, because it's a turning point. Quick exit question, Charles. What did you make of the bishop yesterday, the woke bishop?
I thought it was wildly inappropriate. I mean,
that's your church, right? You're an Anglican, aren't you?
Well, I'm actually not. I was raised Anglican, I suppose.
Okay.
I'm sort of functionally, although I'm not religious, but I'm functionally Catholic. My wife's a Catholic. We're raising our children Catholic. So I suppose I would horrify my great-grandfather. But the religious questions aside, and I thought Trump and J.D. Vance dealt with it very well. This was a perfect example of what some people term cry bullying, where you use the podium that you've been given to attack somebody, and then when others say, hey, that was inappropriate, you say, I'm being silenced. And so the bishop today was on The View and other left-wing channels saying that her free speech rights were being...
Yeah, it's so funny. The woke people have really, we need a 12-step program for woke Anonymous. Charles C.W. Cooke, thank you. I'll be right back.